and welcome to day one of the Flosstyle Bazinga backpack sew along. So today we're going to start by taping together our pattern pieces. So you need to print your pattern out at full scale or no scaling and check that your test square, this is your test square here, you want to check that your test square measures 5 centimeters by 5 centimeters once you've printed it, and then you can print all the rest of your pieces. Once you've printed all your pieces, you want to tape them together. So everywhere where there's a dotted line on your pattern piece, that means that that piece joins onto another piece. So all of the pieces in this pattern are labelled by colour. So this is the green piece, and then if they are part 1 of 2 or part 2 of 2, they have a number after the colour. So this is green 2 of 2 and green 1 of 2. So they go together at the dotted line here. So you want to tape all your pieces together. And then the next thing that you want to do is to trace all of your pieces onto some interfacing. So I've got all of my pieces here traced out onto the interfacing, and then what we're going to do is we're going to iron the interfacing onto our outer fabric, and then we're going to place our outer fabric on top of our lining fabric and cut out all the pieces together so that we only have to cut once. So on page 4 of the pattern, you can see I've ticked off my pieces as I've traced them onto the interfacing. There's some diagrams that will help you with this. So the first diagram is a picture of the interfacing with all of the pieces traced onto it. And then the second is the piece of outer fabric, and then the second is your lining fabric. So there are 2 pieces that you trace onto the interfacing, and they've got lining written on them. So you're going to chop those out of the interfacing before you iron it onto your outer fabric, because they're going to be for the lining fabric, not the outer fabric. And I did do a video the other day and showed you the fabrics that I thought I might use, but I was a bit undecided, and so I have since changed my mind. Go figure. So this is the fabric that I'm going to be using for my outer now, and this is the fabric that I'm going to be using for my lining. So I'm also going to use this lining fabric to make my own bias, and we're going to be doing that later today. So what I'm going to go do now is I'm going to go take my outer fabric and I'm going to go iron my interfacing onto my outer fabric. Okay, so I've ironed my interfacing onto my outer fabric. I forgot to mention earlier that if your fabric is directional, you'll need to make sure that you're ironing your interfacing on in the right way. So I've got this piece here. This is the green piece, and you can see on the pattern piece it tells you where on the bag it is. So it goes long ways top to bottom with the pointy bit at the top. So I've ironed my interfacing on so that it's long ways with the pointy bit at the top, and that goes with the directional mode fabric. So if you pick directional fabric, you'll just need to double check the layout of your pattern pieces before you iron your interfacing on. So you can chop your interfacing up, like once you've traced on it. You could see before mine was a big roll, and I've chopped it up so that I can lay my pieces out directionally. So these are the straps, and these 4 pieces here are going to become the front. So once you have ironed your interfacing onto your outer fabric, we're going to lay it over our lining fabric like this, place our pattern weights over it, and cut it out so that we'll be cutting our outer and our lining at the same time. Okay, so once you've cut out those pieces, there are a few extra pieces to cut out. If you want a drink bottle holder on the side of your bag, you're going to need to cut 1 outer and 1 lining of the lilac piece, and then if you want the internal foam pocket, you're going to need to cut 1 lining of the lilac piece as well. So 3 pieces in total, 2 for your drink bottle and 1 for your foam pocket. Then if you want the pocket on the front of your bag, you can see the arrows pointing to this whole piece here, but I've already chopped it across the top. I'm going to cut 2 of my lining pieces to give me my pocket on the front of my bag. And then for the internal pocket, called the laptop pocket, if you want that, you're going to need to cut 2 yellow pieces from your lining, and you're going to fold it over at the dash here so that it's got a flat top instead of a rounded top. Okay, so now we've cut out all of our pieces. We have this big stack of pieces all topped out. And I know that looks a little overwhelming, but it's okay because we're going to work through them together step by step. So we're going to put those to the side for now, and the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to make some bias binding. So the instructions for bias binding are on page 3 of the pattern, but what you're going to do is you're going to cut strips of fabric on the bias. So the bias of your fabric is diagonally across from corner to corner. So from selvage to selvage, you want to cut diagonally across at a 45-degree angle. And the reason for that is that it gives your bias stretch. So by cutting on the bias, you're giving your bias binding stretch, and what that allows us to do is to go around corners. So there are quite a few corners on your Bazinga backpack, but one of the sharpest ones here is on the strap. So you're going to put your bias around this corner. And if you cut it vertically or horizontally, it's not going to have the same stretch as if you cut it on the bias, and you're going to get puckers when you go around the corner. So you want to cut it on that 45-degree angle, and you're going to cut 20 mil bias, and you're going to cut 25 mil bias. So once you've got your strips like this, what you're going to do is fold both the edges into the middle like that and iron that in place. And then once you've done that, you can fold the two new edges together like that, and that gives you your double-sided bias. And that way we can cover all of the edges, the raw edges in our backpack, and we don't need an overlocker to do that, and we'll have nice, neat, tidy edges. So that's it for today. That's all of the things that we need to do for day 1 of the sew along, and we'll be back tomorrow for day 2. Thank you for joining me. Bye.